Hey guys, how's it going? This is Joseph Matthews, and in this little tutorial I'm going to teach you how to be funny. And it's actually going to be much easier than you think. These are just some simple tricks that I use to add humor to any interaction, and I know that they're going to work really well for you. Alright, so the first thing I want to talk about is how serious humor really is. If you can't be funny when you're talking to someone, you really can't be all that interesting. Fact of the matter is, the funnier you are, the more fun you're going to be, and the more people want to hang out with you. So, you need to be as funny as you possibly can in order to attract the most attention. But the thing is that you don't have to be funny all the time. You just need to be funny when it's appropriate. And some well-placed laughter will bond a lot of good feelings to you from, the people that you want to basically impress. So the first thing I want to talk about is how humor is really a sign of intelligence. You see, only smart people really know how to be funny on purpose, okay? And when you make people laugh, they subconsciously associate your ability to be humorous with a high intelligence. And this puts you in a position of authority. And this is really important because, if people hold you in high regard, that gives you a higher social status. And we all know women are attracted to people with a high social status. It's in their nature. So the funnier you are, the higher you can raise your social standing in pretty much any situation you find yourself in. And here's another key that I really want to hammer home, and that's the idea that you don't have to be funny to be humorous. Don't worry about trying to be funny, okay? It really doesn't matter. A lot of what you say to be funny will not work, and the reason for that is that everyone has a different sense of humor, okay? Just being goofy and lighthearted will generate the same type of emotions that funny people do, even if you don't make people laugh, okay? The idea here is that you want to project the intent of being funny. So that kind of takes the pressure off in the sense that, you don't have to actually perform. You don't actually have to make people laugh. You don't actually have to tell them good jokes. You just have to have the intention to make people laugh and make people have a good time. And they'll pick up on that and appreciate that. Another big thing is I don't want you to be afraid to mess up, okay? Being funny is an art form. You won't always succeed, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't try, okay? Now, in our efforts to be funny, stuff happens, Sometimes you might insult somebody, sometimes you might take something too far so that it stops being funny, sometimes you might say something inappropriate in the setting that you're in. This is going to happen if you want to try and be a humorous guy, because being funny is about taking chances. It's about doing stuff that's unexpected. And sometimes it can backfire on you. But if this happens, don't worry about it. Just apologize and move on, If you say something that's inappropriate or insulting, just say, like, look, in all seriousness, I'm really sorry. I was just trying to be funny. Can you forgive me? All right, that's all you need to do if you take things too far. So don't worry about messing up, because everyone knows what it's like to try to be funny and bomb. It's happened to everyone at some point in time. So if you just acknowledge it and you ask for their forgiveness, they will usually grant it to you. Okay, and another thing I want to point out is the fact that humor is not hard to do. See, a lot of people think it is, but it isn't. The truth of the matter is that anybody can do it. If you think you aren't funny or entertaining, don't sweat it. You can be, and you will be. Okay, believe that it's possible for you to be a funny guy even if you aren't. This will help you a great deal. I know a lot of guys out there are saying, like, oh my gosh, I'm so boring, I have no personality, I can't be funny. Okay, get rid of that belief right now, okay? It's possible for you to overcome that, even if you're like the most boring guy on earth who speaks with like a monotone Ben Stein type voice. Bueller, the guy I'm talking about. Okay, even if you're that guy, you can still be humorous, okay? You just have to go with it. You can't be, clinging to that belief that, you're just not a funny guy. You can be and you will be, and I'm going to show you how. Okay, so let's talk about the elements of humor. And these are just quick and easy things that I personally use to be funny when I'm around women. And I'm pretty sure you can use them too. Okay, the first one I want to hammer on is this concept I call immaturity. Okay, Basically, immaturity is that, you know, everything that was funny in the first grade is still funny when you're an adult. Okay, grown adults acting like children isn't funny, but grown adults talking like children is. So, you know, if you're like throwing a temper tantrum or whatever because you didn't get your way, you know, no one's going to find that funny. But if you start talking like a baby, but you still act like an adult, you know, that is funny. So let's just go over a few examples here. You know, like if you were ever a kid and you're on the playground and someone took your toy and you got mad at them, you'd say, "You're a doo-doo head." Okay? You know, and when you were a kid, you know, saying stuff like "you're a doo-doo head" was funny. So let's take that now when you're like a grown man. You know, let's say a girl says or does something you don't like, and you just kind of look at her and squint your eyes and say, "You're a doo-doo head." You know, that can be funny. All right. Another thing is, for instance, girls are icky. How many times growing up did you and your friends run around saying girls are icky? All right. Everyone's heard this stuff. Women who've been around kids have heard this stuff. Um, so like let's say a woman comes to you and says like, "Hey, I've got a friend I really want to hook you up with." You can just tell her, "Ooh, girls are icky," or something like that. It really doesn't matter. You're just taking stuff that sounds immature and you're applying it to your grown-up adult persona. Another thing is you got cooties. Okay, that's a big kind of thing that immature kids run around talking about. So like let's say you're out on a date with a girl and she's having you're having dinner and she says, "Oh my God, the mashed potatoes are so good, you gotta try some." And she holds out her fork for you to like try a little bit of potatoes, and you just say, "Ooh, no, you got cooties." Stuff like that. Like it might not get like a big belly laugh. Sometimes it can be if it's unexpected, but most of the time, it's something that's like kind of fun and immature and humorous. So, again, we're creating these feelings that you're going to be a playful type guy when you act I shouldn't say when you act, when you talk immature. All right, the next concept I have, I couldn't think of a really good way to kind of encapsulate this with a word, so I call it going plaid. And this is really a lame Spaceballs reference. If you've ever seen the movie Spaceballs, they have light speed, they have hyperspeed, and then they have plaid. And going plaid means that you're going so fast that you actually turn the color plaid, which is like a mishmash of all these different colors. And basically, I use this concept to explain that you take a complaint or a criticism that someone makes of you, and you own it. And then once you own it, you take it way further than anyone ever really expected you to, okay? So let me give you some examples of this. Let's say you're out with a girl and you say something kind of stupid, and she says, "You're such a dork." But she says it in like a fun way. Like she doesn't really mean it. She just says, "Oh, you're such a dork." And you can respond to that by saying, "You're right. I am a dork. I'm the king of the dorks, as a matter of fact. We always get together once a year and have an election, and I've won like the past 12 dork years in a row. And wait till you see my massive Star Wars figurines collection back at home. It's going to make you so hot you won't be able to resist my dork-like charms." That's what I mean by going plaid, is you take something that could be considered something that's negative, and not only do you own it, but you take it to its most ridiculous extreme. So, let's say, you say something kind of funny, and a girl kind of says jokingly, "Oh my God, you're weird," okay? And, you take that and you're like, "You're right, I'm the weirdest guy you're ever going to meet. In fact, I bottle my own urine and keep it in my refrigerator and label it based on, the time of day and, what month it was." And that's not weird at all. I just think that, it's kind of cool. So you take stuff and you bring it to an extreme, and maybe the urine thing, I just did that off the top of my head. Maybe the urine thing was going a bit too far, but you see what I'm saying. If a girl says you're weird, you say, "You're right, I am weird, but you must be weird too because you're hanging out with me." You take it, you go to the extreme. Another one is when a girl says, "Oh my God, you're so mean." This will happen a lot if you do a lot of teasing. So if you're teasing a girl, she'll be like, "You're so mean. Why are you being mean to me?" And you just look at her and you just say, because I'm a mean person. Duh. I mean, what are you, stupid? Of course I'm mean. I'm the meanest guy you're ever gonna meet. You must be a masochist because when you hang out with me, I'm gonna be so mean to you. So that's what you gotta do when you go plaid. Is you gotta own the stuff that people say about you, and you gotta take it as far as you possibly can. Okay, the next kind of concept I want to talk about is dick and fart jokes, otherwise known as racy humor. Okay? Now, a lot of guys kind of shy away from this stuff, but you can't be afraid to joke about inappropriate stuff with women. Okay? Sometimes guys are afraid that it might be too sexual and it might scare the girl off or whatever, but the fact of the matter is, girls love dirty jokes as much as guys. And, in the off chance that they don't, if it is inappropriate or it's not their type of humor, once you find that out, shy away from it. Don't do it again. But, you should always not be afraid to kind of go out and give it a try. So some of the things I like to kind of lump in with the whole dick and fart joke mentality is exaggerating what women, find attractive. Okay? So, like, let's say that women like tall guys, okay? I'm not saying all women like tall guys, but let's say you meet a woman who does like tall guys, and you're like, oh my God, you're so into tall guys, like, you like the 8-foot giant people, everyone's a a midget to you because you only like guys who are like 10 feet tall. That's what you can do, and you can point out like really tall guys and be like, you see that guy right there over there? Yeah, he's not tall enough for you. Okay, he could be like, a basketball player 8 feet tall. You'd be like, no, he's not tall enough for you. You like taller guys. You like taller guys than that. So take some stuff that women like and exaggerate it. Accuse them of being sexual deviants. This always works really, really well. I don't know why, but when you look at a girl and you start accusing her of being into like some crazy stuff, one of two things will either happen. She'll either completely deny it, in which case you take it further, or she'll play along with it, in which case you take it further. Okay, so let me think of an example of this. Just be like, you could look at her and be like, oh my God, look at you. Like, I bet you're like the type of girl who loves to be like tied up and spanked. Like that totally seems like your personality. Like you're the spanking girl. You just love to spank people. Or you could also take it, be like, oh my God, like you're such a dominatrix in training. Like I bet you have like a bunch of whips and chains at home, and you can't wait to get me home and violate me in all sorts of different weird ways. Like you're scaring me. Like I really don't want to hang out with you right now. Okay, like that's the type of stuff that I mean when you talk about accusing them of being sexual deviants. Another thing is talk about how they want to rape you or take advantage of you. Now, this is a little bit of a role reversal thing because a big fear that women have when they're dating guys is that they're going to be raped or they're going to be taken advantage of in some way. But you can actually use this to your advantage by turning it around and saying stuff like for instance, if she brings you a drink, you can say like, you didn't slip a roofie in this, did you? Because the last thing I want to do is wake up in bed and find out that you completely took advantage of me. Or if she gives you a drink, you say like, are you trying to get me drunk? Because I'm not that type of guy. Stuff like that. You want to kind of accuse her of being the one trying to get you into bed, okay, or trying to take advantage of you in some way. And this is funny, but it also has like some underlying sexual tension aspects to it, which can be really fun. Another thing is to make fun of bodily noises. Like everyone thinks fart noises are funny, and you can just sit there and be like, with your mouth just go, and then accuse her of being farting. Just look at her and be like, ew, I can't believe you, ew, and it's funny because it's obvious you're the one doing it, but you're accusing her, so it gets some laughs. And the last one is to accuse women of having outrageous fetishes. Okay, and this is stuff that where you take the most mundane thing and you turn it into a fetish. Okay, so for instance, like let's say that you're talking to a girl and she's complaining about having to go to the optometrist to get her eyes examined, and you can say something like, you don't fool me, I know your secret, you have an optometrist fetish, like you have optometrist porn at home that you secretly jerk off to, and you can't wait to go to the optometrist because like you're in love with the optometrist. You know, you take mundane stuff and turn it into a fetish. Like, you know, lots of girls love to shop for shoes. So you say, like, oh my God, you have such a shoe fetish. Like, you know, if those shoes were like a man, you'd totally have sex with them. You know, that's what I mean by turning stuff into outrageous fetishes. Okay, recall humor. Recall humor is basically taking what was funny once and continue to have it be funny again. And this is really where inside jokes come from. So basically, take something that you both thought was funny, that you both laughed at, and reference it again whenever you want it to be funny again. Let me give you some examples of this from my own life. There's a TV show on USA Network. It's called Psych, and it's about this guy who pretends to be a psychic and helps the police solve murders or whatever. And there's a lot of really funny lines in this show. And you know, me and a girl, she used to come over to my place and watch the show with me because I got her into it. And there was one episode where there was a line that the main character used, and he basically said, "Are you a fan of delicious flavor?" And you know, me saying it right now, it's not all that funny, but in context, it really was. So me and the girl laughed really hard at that. And so every time I'd call her up, I'd start off the conversation by saying, "Hey, are you a fan of delicious flavor?" And she'd of course say, "Yes, I am." And I'd be like, "Well, then I got a treat for you." And then I'd talk about something cool that we were going to do. So that's a good example of recall humor, where you take an experience that the two of you shared, the two of you had a really good, you know, laugh at, and then you bring it up and you apply it to other stuff. Another example of this is, you know, if you've ever seen the movie Forgetting Sarah Marshall, which is kind of this romantic comedy, there's a part in there where this guy basically meets this other guy. He's British, and he says, "You sound like you're from London." You know, he kind of does this impersonation of like a British accent and says, "You sound like you're from London." And I went to go see this movie with a girl, and it was out in the theaters. And this girl couldn't stop laughing when the character said that. She just thought it was the funniest thing in the world. So every time I'd get together with her thereafter, one of the first things out of my mouth is I'd look at her and I'd say, "You sound like you're from London." And she'd just start laughing and she'd smile and stuff like that. And it was fun. It was recall humor. But it doesn't always have to be like, you know, lines from TV shows or movies or something like that. It could be something that someone said. And it doesn't even have to be all that funny. Like, for instance, I used to date this girl, and she would have to work in the morning, so she couldn't, like, you know, stay out too late or whatever. So basically, by 10 o'clock or what have you, like, she'd have to be at home and in bed. And she used to say, you know, that, you know, if she doesn't get home in time, she's going to turn into a pumpkin. So I would use that. And whenever we were out, I'd look at the time and say, like, uh-oh, you know, like you're only a couple minutes away from turning into a pumpkin or something along those lines. And it was, you know, it's this kind of fun thing where you have this inside joke that like no one else really gets except the two of you, because you're the only ones that really experience that. So if you've ever had that experience with a girl, be sure to call it back up and use it when you need to. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is ambivalence, and this is actually one of my favorite ways to be funny, basically. And what ambivalence is it's basically you look forward to something bad happening, or you take pleasure in someone else's misfortune, and you're also kind of unresponsive to bad things. And the reason that this works is because these types of reactions are really shocking and surprising, and because they're so unexpected, they are therefore funny. I'm going to use an example of this. If you've ever seen the movie Private Parts by Howard Stern, there's a whole scene in there where he talks about being in Vietnam and thinking it's unfair that, you know, that they miscounted the number of confirmed kills he got, because what he did was he went and he found a school full of Vietnamese children, threw a grenade in there and killed like 80 of them. And when his sergeant, you know, came to count the bodies, he said, you know, "Private Stern, these are kids. That counts as one kill." So, you know, this kind of horrible story about, you know, going to a school and killing like 80 children, and being upset that it only counts as like one kill, That's an example of ambivalence. You know, you're taking this horrible act in wartime, no less, and bragging about it and being upset that you didn't get credit for killing all those children. So that's kind of an example of ambivalence where you take something bad and you actually kind of take some type of delight in it. So a little bit of a better example of this, like let's say you're talking to a girl and she's complaining about how she works really hard but she never has any money. She's like, oh, I'm so poor. You can take a lot of glee in that. You can be like, yep, looks like you're gonna have to start, stripping or walking the streets or something like that. You're gonna need to make some extra money. You just kind of take pleasure in the fact that she's poor, and you start kind of trying to get her to do all these terrible things to make money. Like looks like you're gonna have to be a drug mule. I'm gonna have to fly you down to Mexico and shove condoms full of cocaine up your butt and then take you back across the border in order to help you pay a rent. I mean that's a good example of ambivalence. Another thing is basically being unresponsive to bad stuff, like for instance the whole global warming thing. Like people are all about global warming. We gotta save the planet. We gotta do this. We gotta do that. And you could be like, screw global warming. I'm cold now. It's like I want it to be hot. I want the world to be warmer because it's freaking cold out and I don't like the cold. So that's another example of ambivalence. And ambivalence really stems from just like being lazy and not caring. Okay, that's how this humor works. Is everything that someone says to you, like you can just be like, whatever, and it's funny. All right, here's another thing I call gayness. Now, I'm not saying that gay people are bad or whatever, but you got to admit that gay people are funny. Gay men, masculine men doing feminine things is always good for a laugh. And stories are also always much funnier when they're told in a gay voice. So, whenever you're hanging out with a girl or whatever and you start talking gay, she's going to enjoy it. She's going to laugh because it's something that's like different from who you really are, which is, hopefully, a straight, heterosexual, masculine man. So, like sometimes I'll be like, hey, it's gay story time, and then like I'll tell like a normal story that I was gonna tell anyway, but just do it in a gay voice. Be like, I'll say something like, oh honey, you don't even know, like, oh my god, the thing with the thing and that guy, oh my god, I can't believe he said that. I'll just go off and I'll riff, but I'll do it in a gay voice. And women, for some reason, I don't know why, they always love it. I don't even think my gay voice is all that good, to tell you the truth, but they like it. Okay, and another great way to use gayness is to pretend to be one of her girlfriends. Like if a girl starts talking about, like something that she'd normally talk about with her girlfriend, I'll be like, wait, pause 1 minute. I'm just going to take my balls, I'm going to put them in this imaginary jar here, like, okay, I'm putting my balls away. I'm totally your girlfriend right now. Just talk to me like your girlfriend. So, sweetie, what's the problem? And then, so it'll be funny and she'll laugh and then she'll start telling me. So you can do a lot of stuff about like, kind of emasculating yourself, acting gay, talking gay, things like that, and, women like it. Okay, another thing is ridicule and teasing. Here's an interesting fact, is that people hate to be made fun of when they're the ones being made fun of. Okay, they hate ridicule when they're the target, basically. However, people love it when other people are made fun of, especially people in authority or people they personally don't like. Okay? So, let's say you're sitting down with a girl in a restaurant for dinner and your waiter's like, a real jerk, or he's not a very good waiter, or whatever. You could start making fun of that waiter. Just start, ridiculing the guy. Don't do it when he's around, but as soon as he leaves, just turn to the girl and just be like, oh my god, that guy's asshole is puckered so tight you couldn't pull a pin from it with a tractor, and she'll be like, oh my god, yeah, and that brings up another thing, is that when you make fun of other people, it creates a sort of bond between the two of you, because it's almost like you're confiding in them your dislike of something else, and you can be united in your dislike for something. So if she talks about something that she doesn't like or someone she doesn't like, pounce on that, start making fun of it, and she'll start making fun of it too, and before you know it, you two have created a bond over that. Okay? So, use ridicule to ridicule other people, but never, ever, ever ridicule yourself or the girl that you're with. Okay? When you turn ridicule on someone else, they'll tend to get defensive, or it'll lower their self-esteem or what have you. What you want to do is, if you're going to target the girl that you're with, tease her. Okay? And there's a difference between ridicule and teasing. Okay? Good-natured teasing is funny, but if you take it too far, it becomes ridicule. Okay? So when you tease a girl, it's kind of, I'll use an example that we used in the past, where you start making fun of an outrageous fetish that she has. Okay, like let's say she really likes Brussels sprouts, or okay, I got a better one. Let's say she really likes Chinese food. Okay, and she's sitting there, she's like, oh my God, this Chinese food's so good, and I'm just like, oh, look at you, you're so into Chinese food. If Chinese food were a man, you'd totally have sex with it. That's an example of teasing. But like looking at a girl and saying like, oh my God, you look so fat in those jeans. That's not teasing. That's being mean. So you want to walk that fine line. But if you ever got to ridicule someone, always ridicule someone other than yourself or the girl that you're with. Make sure that it's someone that she doesn't like, or someone in authority, like for instance the president. Even if she likes the president or she dislikes the president, whatever, it's always funny to make fun of people who have some type of authority position. You can also make fun of her boss, or your boss, or whatever, someone that has some type of authority over you. Alright, the next one that I want to talk about is impressions. Now, the fact of the matter is, everybody loves impressions, even the bad ones, okay? So, if you want to be funny, when you're telling a story, always do impressions of the different characters that are in the story. It could be a story of you and your friend Bob, and every time, Bob says something, you do it in the Bob voice. And the Bob voice can be something like a really high-pitched, whiny type thing. There's a guy in my group of friends, and his name is Adam. And me and my friends always do impersonations of Adam whenever we tell stories. And when I talk about my friends to the girls I'm with, I use this Adam impression. And it's kind of funny because, Adam, he has this really deep voice, but when we when we do our impression of him, we make him sound like a complete idiot. So we'll say like, yeah, yeah, I really like that, yeah. And that's our Adam voice, okay? And it totally sounds nothing like him, but it's a funny voice. So like when we tell the stories to the girls and we use our Adam voice, the girls really laugh, and they're like, does he really talk like that? And you're like, no, actually, he's got like a really deep voice, but we just like to use that voice. And before long, sometimes the girls even start doing the impressions like that. So you don't even have to worry if you can't do good impressions. Like, do bad impressions and then brag about how bad they are. So for instance, like let's say you're doing an impression of the girl you're with. Like obviously it's hard for guys to impersonate female voices, so you can just do it in a really high-pitched, shrilly voice. It's like, oh, I'm so tired, I don't want to go out, why are you making me go out to dinner with you? I don't even like this place. You can start pretending like that's like your impression of her, and she'll be like, I don't sound like that. And you're like, I don't sound like that. And it's a bad impression, but it's funny. And another way you can do this is do impressions of celebrities or really well-known people. If you're talking about the president, do an impression of the president. Doesn't matter if it's good or not. Just take what you've seen done on TV and try and emulate it best you can. People really respond well to impressions because it's kind of like this theatrical performance. Even if it's not very good, like you're creating a whole new character that they can get into. Alright, the next thing I want to talk about when it comes time to be funny is talking with stereotypes. Now, all stereotypes are funny because there's always some measure of truth to them. Even if they're completely offensive and out of left field, they're still funny. So for instance, if you're like an uptight white guy like myself, throw in some ghetto speak. When I meet up with a girl, like if I call her up on the phone, one of the first things out of my mouth is sometimes, hey, what's the dealio? you know. I don't really talk like that. I don't say like, what's the dealio, you know, like it doesn't sound right coming out of my mouth. But, you know, when I'm calling up a girl and I want to be funny and playful, I use like what I like to call ghetto speak, which, you know, like ebonics and, you know, stuff like that. It's like, call her up, hey shorty, what's happening? You know, I mean, like really, you know, dumb stuff like that when it comes to me saying it. Now, on the flip side of that, if you're a ghetto black guy, talk like an uptight white guy, you know. Dave Chappelle does this really well, where he has this very white voice that he uses sometimes, and that's funny, you know, because you're kind of playing into this stereotype that white guys have like this very proper diction, and you know they're very uptight. If you're an Asian guy and you want to talk like Hong Kong Phooey, you know, with like the Asian voice, you know, go for it, because Asian guys can pull that off. Even though it's like very offensive and stereotypical, it's funny. If you're an Indian, talk like Habib, you know, like the guy from The Simpsons. It's like, thank you've come again, you know, that type of thing. And you can get away with it because you're Indian, you know. If you know, other people were doing it, it might be offensive, but you got to take stereotypes, and instead of being offended by them, use them to your advantage. And when you do this, you want to take those stereotypes and blow them way out of proportion, you know, like just take them to their furthest extreme. People love it. Okay, another thing is sarcasm. And sarcasm is probably the easiest type of humor to do, but it's the hardest to appreciate. The more intelligent someone is, the more they can appreciate sarcasm. But just a word of warning here, people with low self-esteem, they don't really like sarcasm, okay? Because it can come off as being really offensive. There was the show that used to be on Comedy Central, I don't know if it still is, but it's called The Kids in the Hall. And it was basically a sketch comedy show. And they had a sketch on there called The Sarcasm Man. And basically it was this guy who had a speech impediment where everything he said sounded really sarcastic. And people people were always pissed off with him because it always sounded like, you know, he was just like making fun of them. So, you know, someone would come up to the guy and they'd be like, hey, you know, like, my name's Jim. What's your name? He's like, oh, hi, Jim. My name's Bill. You know, and then the guy'd be like, dude, why are you being so mean? Like, I just came up to introduce myself to you. And it's like, what? I'm not being mean. You know, and it went on like that for like, you know, a good, you know, 10, 15 minutes where the guy was just getting more and more upset, and the guy would have to explain like, oh, I'm not being sarcastic. I have a speech impediment. It's a real problem. And, you know, that was kind of like the punchline to the whole thing. So basically, when it comes to sarcasm, you basically got to act like the person you're talking to is a complete idiot, and you have to lower yourself to their level in order to effectively communicate with them. That's basically what sarcasm is you have a feeling of superiority over the person, and you're kind of poking fun at the fact that they're dumber than you are. And oddly enough, lots of girls really love sarcasm. They really love sarcastic humor, and a lot of girls, as a matter of fact, have a very sarcastic sense of humor themselves. Like, their type of humor is sarcastic. So if you're a guy, you tend to put up with a lot of sarcastic women. So, and another thing I just want to point out is a lot of the stuff I've been going through with you guys with so far in this presentation is stuff I've learned from women. Like, this is all humor that I've gotten from girls that, you know, made me laugh. And I kind of sat down and was like, what is it they do that's funny? And it's very easy for like a girl to act like, you know, she's better than you and she's smarter than you, and she's got to talk down to you in order to do that. If you're dealing with sarcastic humor from someone else, play into it. Just act like you're a complete retard and be like, you're right, man can't talk, you know. Just go with it. If someone's kind of treating you like that, take it to its, you know, logical extreme. When you're dealing with someone who's sarcastic, you can pull the sarcastic humor all you want. But if you're dealing with someone who's not sarcastic, who has, you know, low self-esteem, who's kind of like sweet or whatever, you don't want to go the sarcastic route. Okay, another thing I love to do is use nicknames. Nicknames can be a lot of fun, and they can be really funny. And the more ridiculous the nickname, the better. One of the cool things about nicknames is that it really does create a bond between two people, because when you name something, you imply a certain sense of ownership, and it also becomes a type of inside joke between the two of you. A good example of this is one time I started dating this girl. Her name was Katie, and her email address was something like Goofy Kate, 123 or something like that. And when I got emails from her, it was always, from this Goofy Kate email address, so I just started calling her Goofy Kate, and eventually that got shortened to Goofy. And every time I'd see her, I'd be like, "Hey, what's up, Goofy?" And she'd laugh and whatever. But to me and her, it was, she was Goofy. That was her name. There was another girl I met where I used to call her Fuzzy Bunny. I don't even remember why. I just called her like Fuzzy Bunny for no real good reason, but that name kind of stuck. She was my little Fuzzy Bunny. And as long as like you're not calling women like really offensive names, like bitch, slut, hoe, even though I have had girls who I nicknamed that never to their face, but whatever. You kind of have this kind of endearing inside joke. And whenever you're in a relationship with someone, eventually nicknames like kind of pop up. So it's always good to kind of like be the first one to go out there and do that and start referring to them in that sense. All right, bad jokes. Good jokes are hard, bad jokes are easy. That's just the long and short of it right there. So if you're going to tell jokes, don't even try to tell good jokes. Just use bad jokes because they're easy. You can go online and find like a billion bad jokes. Word of wisdom, though, the shorter the jokes are, the better. Okay, and remember our little talk on immaturity a little bit earlier. First grade humor is always funny, and so if use bad jokes that would make like a kindergartner laugh. Now, it might not get you an actual laugh from the girl, but it doesn't matter because it's a playful thing. It's fun, and you can also turn it into a game. So, for instance, you could just look at her, like, if there's a lull in the conversation or whatever, you could just say, "Hey, why'd the monkey fall out of the tree?" And she'd be like, "I don't know." And you're like, "'Cause it's dead, duh." I mean, that's a bad joke, but, it's just something funny. And then you can be like, "Okay, your turn. It's your turn to tell me a joke." And then she tells you a joke, and it can be a good joke or a bad joke or whatever. And then, like, the idea is, like, in the game, who can tell the worst joke. And another thing I like to lump into the bad joke category are bad pickup lines, because once you get to know a girl, like once you're past the point of meeting her and you're actually dating and stuff like that, bad pickup lines actually work. Surprisingly enough, they do. Like, you could meet up with a girl to go see a movie, for instance. Let's say you two of you get together, and you're like, "Damn, girl, did you wash your pants in Windex? Because I can see myself in them." I mean, like, that's a really bad pickup line. It would never work. But if you already know the girl and you use that, she's gonna think it's funny. She's gonna let it go. Like, I do this all the time. I take every bad pickup line I can possibly think of, and I use it whenever I meet up with a girl I know. And it's really fun. It's really funny. All right. Another favorite tactic of mine is to steal stuff that's already funny. It's hard to think of funny stuff on your own, but there's tons of stuff out there that's already humorous and will guaranteed to make people laugh. So think of great jokes that you've heard from comedians and well-known celebrities and use them. Talk about them for your own gain. Tell the joke in a story as if you're impersonating the comedian. I don't know if you've ever seen people like Chris Rock in stand-up, but these guys are really, really funny. And you can even say to a girl, it's like, "Hey, you ever watch Chris Rock?" And she's like, "Oh, I love Chris Rock." Then you can say, like, "Oh my God, I saw his stand-up one time, and he has this story about, like the only goal of a guy who has a daughter is to keep her off the stripper pole." And then you can actually go into the exact same routine that Chris Rock uses in his stand-up and just like repeat it word for word, and it's still funny. Like, women get it. Like, then there's this whole other Chris Rock thing about having the dick in the jar. Like how every woman has like a guy friend who, in case she breaks up with her current boyfriend, she goes to him and just uses him for the rebound, and he calls that the dick in the jar. Break in case of emergency. So I love Chris Rock stuff, so I have a lot of his stuff kind of memorized so that if there's a lull in the conversation, or I want to make the girl laugh or talk about something funny or take the conversation in a new direction, I can just pull out, something I love from Chris Rock, Dave Chappelle, Robin Williams, whoever, and just start, reciting it word for word, and maybe even do an impression of them while I'm doing it. So steal stuff that's already funny. It works really good. Okay, now let's talk about self-depreciation. Okay, this is the type of humor where you're basically making fun of yourself. And of course, people love ridicule as long as it's not directed at them. Now, self-depreciation humor actually does a lot of good things on your behalf, because if you're able to be self-depreciating, it shows that you're cool, because you can poke fun at yourself and not get upset. And women really like it when a guy has the ability to kind of make fun of himself, because it shows that he's not pompous, that he doesn't have hubris, and that he's confident enough to kind of take a licking and not kind of get angry or upset. Because whenever someone gets made fun of and they get upset about it, it shows that there's some type of problem with their self-esteem. So people with low self-esteem can't tolerate being made fun of. So if you can tolerate being made fun of, and in fact you make fun of yourself, that shows that you have some measure of confidence and that you're a cool guy. Now, on the flip side of this, it's also a great defense mechanism. So like, let's say someone criticizes you, or whatever. Let's say you're out on a date and you have a run-in with some dude, and he starts making fun of you or criticizing you in some respect. What you can do is you can agree with whoever it is that's criticizing you, and then take it to a ridiculous extreme. This is really important, because this is where the humor comes in, but it's also a good way to deflect whatever criticism someone is heaping on you. So let's say you run into some guy and he wants your chick or whatever, and he's like, dude, you're a freaking loser. Like, what's she doing with a loser like you? And you're like, oh my God, yeah, you're so right. Like, in a few months' time, I'm gonna be like shitting in a pickle jar. I just know it, but I can never really be as cool as you, man. Like, you're such a cool guy. Can you teach me how to not be a loser, please? Like, in fact, take my girl, please. Like, she needs to be with a winner like you. So basically what you're doing is you're agreeing with the guy, and you're taking it as far as it can possibly go, but in a way you're deflecting that criticism, and you're making him seem like a tool, all through the use of self-depreciation. Now, this can also be used to kind of diffuse a mistake or something that you did wrong. So like, let's say that you made a mistake or you did something stupid. You can use self-depreciation to make light of it and then diffuse the awkwardness. So let's say let me give you an example. One time I was out on a date and I accidentally farted, and it was very, very embarrassing. And it was one of those farts where, like, you heard it. It happened. It was there, and it was obvious that I did it. And I just looked at her and I just said, "Oh my God, I totally just farted. I'm so sorry. I've been eating a lot of red meat too, so it's going to be a really nasty one. So hold your nose. Go on, plug it up. Hold your nose. If you smell this, you'll break up with me. I just know it. It's the type of fart that could end a marriage." I basically pointed out the fart, and I just let it go and wouldn't let go of it. I took it to the extreme. I was just like, oh, it's going to be so nasty. Like, I've been eating all the wrong food. It's going to be disgusting. You're going to break up with me because it smells so bad. It's just terrible. And so, like, I turned what was really kind of an awkward situation to something where she just couldn't stop laughing, And again, that was that kind of led into some recall humor later on, where it was like the fart that would end a marriage. And, she'd say stuff like, well, you farted in front of me and I still didn't break up with you. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, what's wrong with you? So you can use stuff like that. And I want to make the point that if you use self-depreciation, don't use it to point out your own flaws or harp on your own insecurities. A lot of guys will try and use self-depreciating humor to kind of, diffuse stuff that they feel uncomfortable about. Like, let's say you have a big nose, and you make fun of yourself because you have the big nose. That's not a good thing, because what you're actually doing is you're highlighting stuff about yourself that's bad, and you think it's bad, and you don't want anyone else to think it's bad. However, by doing that, you're basically pointing out to everyone, hey, look at all the bad stuff about me. Even if they laugh at it, it's not good. So when you do use self-depreciation, only use it as either a defense mechanism or to diffuse some type of awkward situation. Don't ever use it to point out the fact that, you have something wrong with you. Like, for instance, I'm not a very thin guy, I'm a little bit overweight. So when I'm out with a girl, I'd never start making fun of myself for being fat, because that's something that I don't want her to kind of harp on, I don't want her to glaze over it. Now, if someone else calls me fat, then I'll go along with it. I'll just be like, oh my God, you're so right. Like, I'm totally like one step away from being Jabba the Hutt, I'm going to need a slave girl really soon, So if someone else points it out, then that's when you use the self-depreciating humor, but you never bring it up on your own accord because you're insecure about it, okay? Most of the time, people won't even notice stuff that you're insecure about until you bring it up, and then they can start holding that against you because they know that, you're kind of wishy-washy on it. So, just as an aside, never use self-depreciation to point out your own flaws or harp on your own insecurities. But the biggest key to being funny is to have fun. If you have fun, the humor will come naturally, okay? If you're just able to sit back and relax, not worry about anything, not worry about censoring yourself, not worrying about messing up, you will naturally, if you're an intelligent person, which I'm fairly certain that you are, be a funny person. You'll pick up on stuff, you'll crack jokes, you'll have a good time. Remember, humor is all about feelings. It's not about really getting a response. It's not about making people laugh. It's about making people feel good. The better you can make people feel, the more they'll like you, and the more personality you'll display. Even if you're not a funny guy, just be super, super positive. People like positivity. And if you can mix that positivity in with some fun every once in a while, people will like you even more. So out of everything I told you about, if you can't even remember one of those little concepts about how to be funny, just have fun. The more fun you have, the more naturally funny you'll be, and the easier it'll be to make people laugh and have a good time with you. Alright guys, that's all I have for the video. I hope you really enjoyed this thing. Like I said, I got most of this material, most of these concepts from girls who use them on me. So this is stuff that I know for a fact girls respond to. I use all this stuff in every one of my interactions, and I always get a good response from it. So if you need to, watch this video as many times as you want, learn the concepts, and actually go out and start using them, and you'll be absolutely amazed to see the type of responses girls give you. Alright guys, this is Joseph Matthews, and I'll catch you later.